So, welcome, Diane and Paul. Good to see you both.
Hello.
And you, Dan. Hi.
Welcome
After such a long break as well.
Yeah,
I know.
We are back.
Summer break.
Summer has been gone. And certainly here in the UK, it's definitely gotten colder. Okay, I can't believe it has been 3 months now, actually, since the last WPLDN. Between WordFest and then the summer break, it's kept us away for a while. So good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I suppose we should probably remember how to do all this, really.
Yes, I have remembered nothing.
Excellent. Cool. So format for tonight, what we can expect this evening. We've got a couple of sessions coming up, two very different, very interesting sessions. Really looking forward to both of them. If you are joining us on live.bigorangeheart.org, do feel free to use the live chat over there to connect with us and the audience. You've got the option there to the ability there, sorry, to ask questions and get involved. And we want to really try and make this session as interactive as we can tonight. If you need to change your name or anything on your profile, hit your profile in the website. You can update all your details, your website links, etc. Oh, why is keyboard's not working? Okay, so these events are made possible thanks to Big Orange Heart. Big Orange Heart is a registered non-profit with a mission to support and promote positive well-being and mental health within remote working communities. I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers that enable us to deliver this event through Big Orange Heart, including both yourselves, Diane and Paul. I really appreciate you giving your time to be part of this.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So, your hosts this evening. I'm Dan Maybe. I'm the founder of Big Orange Heart. I also run a digital agency focused on design and development services within WordPress. Diane, do you want to say a quick hello?
Hello, I'm Diane Wallace, and I'm a freelance web developer specializing in custom WordPress themes and plugins. Excellent.
Leo Mindell, unfortunately, he is going to be with us a bit later on. I don't mean unfortunately he's going to be with us. Unfortunately, he's not with us now. He is going to be with us later on.
It's all going swimmingly.
Swimmingly. Paul, do you want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, hi. I'm Paul Smart. I run a WordPress agency, Smart Digital, and also on the Big Orange Heart fundraising team.
That you are, and for that I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you. We couldn't do this without the support of our sponsors. Our sponsors sponsor Big Orange Heart, which in turn enables us to deliver WPLDN along with a number of other events. So I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. Passionate about making the web a better place, Automatic.com. Your managed cloud hosting platform, Cloudways.com. The WordPress multilingual plugin, Weglot.com. Generate more leads for your digital agency, Funnelpacks.com. The search engine optimization plugin for WordPress, Yoast.com. There we go, smooth as ever. If you want to, please do help us by thanking our sponsors. The website that you can see on screen right there, big.ht/thanks. If you throw that into your browser, that will form a nice little tweet, which will send a thanks out to all of our sponsors. We would really appreciate if you could do that. big.ht/thanks. I also want to say a big thank you to Blue37, Smart Digital, and Sotic for volunteering and donating time into the delivery of WPLDN. So on to tonight. So we've got two sessions, two very different sessions. Graham is going to be delivering a live review of some of the accessibility, a live review of the Big Orange Heart website from an accessibility perspective. We will dive into a bit more detail in that in a moment. We're also going to be running a roundtable talking about full site editing. Obviously very hot at the moment, a big topic that we need to be discussing as a community. And we're really pleased to have Anne McCarthy, Nathan Wrigley and Paul Lacy going to be joining us on the discussion. I believe, Diane, you're going to be sitting there with me as well, trying to work our way through this.
Yes. Trying to work out intelligent questions because I haven't really had a chance to look at the full site editing. Dan, I know you did.
Really looking forward to this. I think it's a really important topic, and there's so many, it impacts so many people, across the, the way this is delivered into our community. So really excited to hear, where this discussion goes. Not only that, though, but we're also going to be inviting you. So if you're out there on live.bigorangeheart.org, we want to encourage you to come and join us live in here in this discussion during that roundtable session. So if that is something, if you're interested in joining us, we just ask that you are available to join us on camera. And I just want to discuss if you've got any thoughts or opinions around full site editing. We will let you know at that time as to how you can join us, and it'd be good to get you as you the community involved in this discussion. Okay. Just wanted to quickly mention big.ht/speak. All of these big.ht domains, they all redirect to Big Orange Heart. We're always looking for speakers. We've got some exciting news coming up about WPLDN for 2022. If you are interested in speaking, if you're interested in being part of this event, we would love to hear from you. big.ht/speak. Doesn't matter your experience, doesn't matter whether you've spoken at events before or not. We just want to hear from you, the community. This event really is about us as a whole, and we want to make sure that every one of us in the community has an opportunity to share knowledge, share experience, and be part of this event. So if you're interested in joining us at WPLDN, big.ht/speak. Okay, before we start our sessions this evening, we always run a community announcements session. So this is an opportunity, if you're out there watching this, whether that's on live.bigorangeheart.org or whether you're on social, drop us in the comments if you have anything that you feel would be worthwhile sharing with the community. Maybe you're aware of an event that's going on. If there's anything that you feel is newsworthy and you want the community to be aware of, let us know and we'll get it shared through the community announcements. So whilst we wait for any of those to come in, WPLDN 2022. Obviously,
Exciting.
Obviously it's been a a turbulent time is an utter understatement. Over the last couple of years. Last time we were in person together for WPLDN was in February 2019. Happened to remember it because it happened to fall on my 40th birthday. And it was wonderful. And we are really happy to be able to announce that as it is right now, we are making plans to return in January 2022 in person. So our in-person events always have historically and always will continue to happen on the last Thursday of the month. So our physical events will be returning in January 2022, which I think that's a little bit exciing in terms of we've got the ability.
I think so.
We won't remember. Yes. We won't remember how to do it though.
We won't have any party poppers. Oh, I suppose we can actually.
I will bring real party poppers, yes, and silly string and balloons and cupcakes.
Absolutely. And whilst I'm incredibly excited for us to be able to come back together, and I feel very privileged that we, in the UK, we're in a position to be able to do that. And I am very aware that there are many people that are watching this and joining us right now that are not in the UK and may not be in quite such privileged positions to be able to return in person. So that is something we are incredibly aware of, and we will not be turning our backs on this virtual environment. These moving from a physical to a virtual environment has been a game changer, to be honest, for us. How many wonderful people have we had join us over the last?
We've gone international.
Absolutely.
International London.
Yes. We've had phenomenal speakers. We've had incredible guests. We've had just those conversations in the social, both before and after, where we've had people. We've had more people join us internationally than locally, I would say. Many of our events,
and made real connections and real friends all around the world, which has been amazing.
Absolutely.
Yes, and this is obviously as a team we've been discussing. There's issues around the concept of a hybrid event. What does that look like? And there are some concerns about the idea of potentially deteriorating the experience for both the physical and the virtual if the two are run simultaneously. So, whilst we are going back in person at going back to a physical event in January 2022, we will be live streaming the event, so you will be able to watch the sessions and you will be able to communicate via social, etc. as we're doing that. We are also going to launch Minifest. Now, if you've been part of this, with Big Orange Heart, we've delivered WordFest. We've delivered 2 incredibly successful WordFests through 2021. We are taking what we are doing right now and continuing it. So we will continue to deliver this event, this format, in this style as Minifest. That will take place on the second Thursday of every month. So not only are we delivering the physical the physical event, we're also delivering a separate virtual event. So over the course of the month, you will actually be able to join 2 events delivered by Big Orange Heart. WPLDN on the last Thursday of the month as a physical event in London, and Minifest on the second Thursday of the month as a virtual event, which we're really excited about. And I think it's been just a phenomenal experience working with the team. And I just want to say a big thank you, to be honest, to everybody, both Diane, Paul, who are on screen right now, but equally there's a team behind this that are sitting there that have put in an enormous amount of work to enable us to build the platform, to deliver what we're doing, and to be able to get to this stage of being able to continue delivering a virtual event as we move forward. So thank you both.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Not only do we stop there, though, we also get to announce WordFest. Yes. The next WordFest is going to be taking place. We are going to be delivering WordFest Live 2022 on March the 4th, 2022. So we are marching forth into WordFest. That's a really...
See what he did there. Oh.
But we don't stop there. One WordFest...
Because you're just not doing enough, are you? You've got time on your hands.
So we go and do that one. We do March and September. So please, if you are interested in getting involved in WordFest, do mark those dates, March 4th and September 9th. We're going to be delivering 2 WordFests in 2022, along with 18 other events. So we'll be delivering 9 physical WPLDNs, 9 virtual Minifests, and 2 WordFests. So we got 20 events that we're going to be delivering through 2022. So really excited about where this is going to go, where it's taking us. And again, if you're interested in getting involved, if you're a company, maybe think about getting involved in terms of sponsorship. We have a limited number of opportunities remaining. We have packaged up a fantastic deal that will enable you to sponsor Big Orange Heart through 2022, which will enable you to be featured across every single event that we do. So that's 20 events throughout 2022, plus all of the other activities that Big Orange Heart undertakes throughout the year. And all of your funds will be going directly into the US nonprofit, enabling us to be able to deliver mental health and wellbeing support into our remote working community. Oh, phew. Right. Okay, there's enough of those. I've got a few more things that we just wanted to touch on. Of course, WordPress keeps evolving, keeps moving forward. We've got 5.9 coming up. Yes, where do we go with this one? So the 5.9 the full site editing feature Go No Go meeting is coming up. So 12th of October, that is slated for that meeting. So during that call, there will be the decisions as to which features will and will not make it into the 5.9 core release. This is slated for the 14th of December, this release. Excuse me, and will be the final major release of 2022. Excuse me. God, all that event stuff, far too much going on. So Really interesting. We've got a discussion going on later on this evening around full site editing, and I'm really interested to get into that conversation. Obviously, 5.9 is part of that continuing evolution of full site editing within WordPress. So looking forward to continuing that conversation. Wanted to mention this. Anyone recognize this little line of code here? What have we got going on here then?
I'm guessing it's the WooCommerce birthday.
It was, yes, yeah, 3 days ago, 10 years old, a decade of WooCommerce, which is quite incredible. I think a big congratulations to the entire team behind the. I tried to look at the usage statistics of WooCommerce earlier and got some quite varying numbers, so I found it quite hard to find this is the number of sites it's used across, but it certainly looked up. 23.45%, around that 23% of market share appeared to be the figure that I kept coming across as I was looking at the stats. So big congratulations to the full WooCommerce team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another congratulations to another team. Good old WordCamp US. WordCamp US is taking place tomorrow. So this is kicking off at 4:45 p.m. British summertime. So for all of our UK community that are out there watching, we start at 4:45 tomorrow evening. That is 11:45 a.m. Eastern and 8:45 a.m. Pacific. So if you haven't already looked at it, do take a look at the WordCamp site, us.wordcamp.org/2021. They've got 2 tracks running, and I think there's 15 sessions running over those 2 tracks. So again, big congratulations to the WordCamp US team for pulling all of that together. I appreciate that seems to have come together in really quite a short period of time. So wishing the entire team, all the speakers, volunteers across that, all the best for tomorrow. Another event coming up, we're getting into your diaries, 18th to the 22nd of October, Page Builder Summit. If page builders are your thing, if you are into Beaver Builder, Oxygen, Elementor, all of those good stuff, head over to pagebuildersummit.com to grab yourself a ticket. Also wanted to give a brand new site launched by the Hero Press team, WPPodcasts.com. They've brought together a single place where you can search for podcast content across the WordPress ecosystem. Do take a look at it. It was released today. I jumped on there. I found myself searching for stuff and actually finding podcasts that I hadn't listened to before via that website. So highly recommend heading over to WPPodcasts.com, taking a look. And a big thank you to the Hero Press team for pulling that together. Okay, we've only got about 5 minutes. This is, acquisitions. Where do we start on this? It has just been a period of consistent change, I think, is about all I can say on this at this stage. WordPress acquisition overload syndrome. This was David Bissett coined this phrase on the post status excerpt podcast. I was listening to this earlier on today. Great episode. If you've not listened to it, head over to the poststatus.com website. It is a really interesting period in time, isn't it? We've had, just in the last week, 4 major acquisitions. It just seems to be one after the other being announced. Diane, Paul, I don't know how your experience or hearing all this news and how you're processing, how you feel about it.
Yeah, there just seems to be so much of it at the moment, doesn't there? The acquisitions, and I think it's also some of what we'd see as some of the bigger players in the marketplace as well being acquired. That's the really interesting thing, and I've just got the gut feeling this is just the beginning of it all.
Yeah. I think that kind of this is probably to be expected as WordPress is now a mature platform. So much of the web is built on WordPress. I'm guessing, as Paul says, we're going to see a lot a lot more, kind of big acquisitions happening. I don't know what, slightly nervous about what it means about the future of WordPress as, kind of as we know it as a community. But, just wait and see, I guess.
Yeah. You do run the risk, of course, that you end up with a monopoly, don't you? You end up with a few big players who are just acquiring everybody, and that's always a concern, I guess.
That's kind of what I was thinking, really. I think it's healthier to have sort of diversity of, kind of organizations working on the WordPress project. I think that's, been really good.
Yeah.
I think there's a real human element to this as well that really needs to be thought about. We're talking about individuals that are, companies that are being acquired, where you may have a team that, let's take for example the Sandhills Development acquisition by Automotive. There's a company there that's a smaller company, a smaller team. There's a team that often, in a smaller team, you often have a closer relationships, and moving into a larger team, or again, if we were to take the LearnDash acquisition, for example, by Liquid Web, recently announced, that transition from that team that into that larger organization, there's that impact on the people within it. Individuals make a choice about the companies that they often work with, and they can often choose based on the culture, based on the size of the team, based on the location of the team even. And when we see these acquisitions taking place, obviously there's a lot of change happening there. And I just wonder, we've got an awful lot of change happening within WordPress at its core, but then we're also seeing an awful lot of change in terms of these companies, in terms of acquisitions. And I just wonder about the impact on the people side of this.
I would imagine there's a lot of upheaval for the individuals working in those companies, definitely. Sort of...
It
could be a topic of conversation for next.
No, absolutely. I'd be interested, even where some of the acquisitions are saying they're leaving the teams to run independently. I'd still think there has to be, of course, if someone's just acquired a business, there has to be some sort of input from those people and how that affects, as you say, people and the people working within those teams. But it is going to be very, very interesting right across the board, I think, over the next couple of years.
That's right. And we don't normally do this in this part, but I just want to raise this. Keith has raised a question here. In WP, has an acquisition ever led to a better product? As I was listening, I was also trying to think through that, and I was trying to think of other products, and that have we seen improvements? What are we looking at? Are we looking at, for example, Genesis, for example, or I don't want to kind of dive in and name specific products, although I just have. I'm struggling to really kind of say that product has got so much better because of its acquisition.
I was just on that as well. I was interested to see that Brian Gardner's just been back on board with WP Engine this week.
Yep, it's a really interesting space at the moment, isn't it? And it just feels like there is just an awful lot of change going on, and I just think we need to be aware of that from a human perspective. The impact that it has on, because of course we are still in the midst of a pandemic. We're still in a situation where we're experiencing things we've never experienced before, and there just feels like we've got an enormous amount of stuff being thrown at us in terms of the WordPress core itself, but also the change of work environments.
But also I think as well is something that we touched on prior, Dan, when we were talking, was I think with some of these acquisitions, you do wonder whether some of the companies are using it to acquire talent, because I know people are struggling to employ the right people at the moment, and potentially that is a route to employing potentially good people for you.
Absolutely. I mean, acqui-hire is a very it's a known format. It's a way of acquiring a skill and talent. And Anthony has raised a very good point in the chat. WooCommerce acquired by Automatic, more devs working on it, better product extension repo, better code. So There are examples of acquisitions that are improving product.
Yeah. Oh, I think we've lost Dan.
Big discussion to be had. There is definitely a big discussion to be had around acquisitions, but we're not here to have to talk about acquisitions. We are here to invite Graham Armfield to come and join us. Diane and Paul, thank you so much for that. Graham, I am just going to invite you up on screen to come and join us. Graham, welcome.
Hi there, everyone. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Graham.
Paul. Good to see
Graham.
you.
Yeah.
We are back with
hi to everyone out there in the big wide world.
Yes. Back with one of our old school WPLDN. We've been around. We've been together for many years, haven't we, Graham?
Yeah, we certainly have. And it's the meetup that I've been in the longest, definitely. And I mean, I forget how many episodes I've attended, but not all of them by any means. I don't know, but it's been great, over the years, and I've learned a lot.
Graham was the first person that I met or spoke to at WordPress London the first time that I went. About how many years ago was that?
Yeah. Outside that pub in Camden.
Yes.
It was. Okay, so Graham, we are going to hand this over to you. Whilst we do, I just want to introduce you very quickly. Graham is a web accessibility consultant with his own company called Caulfield Consulting. He works with organizations to help with them improve the accessibility of their websites. And this afternoon, this morning, wherever you happen to be, Graham is going to be doing a live review of the Big Orange Heart website, obviously on a very limited timescale. So we're only going to be looking at very specific pieces of the site from an accessibility perspective. But looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And just to remind you, Graham is going to be running a live Q&A session at the end of his talk. So if you have any questions, if you're on live.bigorangeheart.org, do drop them in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're on social, drop them in the comments, and we will get them we will get them asked at the end of the session. So, Graham, I'm going to bring your slides up for you now, and we are going to disappear. Thank you very much, and it's over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dan. Okay, everyone. Yes, this is a live accessibility review, as you can see. Before I get started, though, I just want to introduce myself, or Dan's done a good job on that, really. I've been developing websites for a long time, using WordPress for the last 10-12 years now, I think. But web accessibility is my primary subject. Some of you know me already, and I'm always banging on about accessibility. I think it's very important. A lot of what I do these days is training up other developers in how to do it properly. I do training courses. I run them for another company, and also review websites as well. This is an interesting one. This is a live review. I've done live reviews before, and obviously I do a lot of accessibility reviews. It's one of the first times, though, that I've actually done it with an audience, and so that's interesting. What I'm going to be covering today is a live review of a bit of bigorangeheart.org to talk about the techniques that I use, to show you the techniques I use and the tools, and to talk a bit around what I'm uncovering, if I uncover any problems, and who it impacts, and potentially what we can do to fix it. So if time allows, I'm going to quickly look at some of these things: keyboard access, text resizing and zooming, color contrast, link text, alternate text for images, headings, landmarks, form fields, and movement videos and stuff like that. I'm probably not going to get to all of those, and they may not be appropriate anyway for the Big Orange Heart site, but I'll see what we can do in the time available. Yeah, I've only got half an hour. There'll be some time at the end for questions, so please feel free to ask me later on. So I'm just going to show you some quick, stuff around, and it's the more common and the more serious accessibility issues. When I'm reviewing sites, there's threads that run through lots and lots of websites, so I'll be picking out on those. If you've seen any of my other presentations. It's kind of based on stuff like that. Now I've done one called How Do I Know If My WordPress Website Is Accessible, and also another one on useful accessibility tools. This is kind of like a live bringing those two things together, so we'll see how it works out. Apologies in advance if there's any cock-ups, but there we go. Okay, so let's get going. I'll get rid of my slides, and now I'm using Firefox because I might actually be running a screen reader later on, and that will be NVDA. I'm running on a Windows machine as well. Let's make that screen full size. So here we go, the home page of the big orange heart website. Now, the first thing you'll notice here is the cookie banner, and I'm going to look at keyboard accessibility first. I've cheated and I've removed the cookies that are already there, so it's shown again. The first thing that I do when I'm testing websites for accessibility is to test out keyboard accessibility. And the first thing is to actually start, using the tab key. Let's get rid of that. Let's get that back because I want to talk about this. Get rid of the cookies. Right. Okay, I'll keep that open for a while. Yeah, brilliant. It's back again now. So I'm going to start pressing the tab key now, and we'll see where we go. Now I'm running Firefox, and the default browser focus indication for keyboard focus is a thin dotted line, and you can see that hopefully see that around the logo at the top. If I keep pressing tab, and I'm getting quite a good focus indication now, which is nice. Okay, so we'll come back to look at the search thing in a minute. And now, the cookie banner's getting in the way. Now, this is I did have a quick look through this earlier, and what's interesting about the cookie banner, now, most people probably just want to get rid of the cookie banner, but there's also people there who care about this and care about privacy. What's tricky about this cookie banner is that the buttons that are in there, the learn more and customize and the reject and accept, they're right at the very end of this page. They're presumably put there in a plugin. I don't know which plugin it is. I'm going to guess it's a plugin anyway. So, but for keyboard users, this is a real problem, because if I want to get rid of the cookie banner, I would have to tab right through the entire page to get to it. I'll quickly show you this little thing. I use a lot of, when I'm doing reviews, I use a lot of favlets to actually help out with certain things. This is an interesting one. It shows you the focus order on the page. Okay, so here it runs a little bit of JavaScript, and it shows you the tab order on the page that the browser has calculated. Starts at 1 up here. Then it goes through to navigation, etc. And you'll notice here that these buttons are down in the 60s. So there's an awful lot of tabbing required to get to to get to the cookie warning. Now, if you're doing cookie warnings, when I've seen this in sites, I recommend either having the tab panel right at the top, the cookie panel at the very, very top of the page. Or what you could do as a change is to actually set tab index values like of 1 or 2 on these buttons, which means that they will get focus before other things on the page that don't have a tab index value set. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Let's get rid of this now, and let's get rid of that. Okay. The other thing about those buttons is that they're actually marked up as buttons, but they're actually the ARIA that's in there, and I should perhaps show this, is that the way that they're done with ARIA means that they give screen readers confusing information. Let's have a look at these. Right, so if we look at this, if I do an inspect on this one, it's a button, which is good, so it's a native element. It's got a tab index of 0. It doesn't need to have that. If you set that to a tab index of 1 or 2, then of course it would get focus much quicker, which would be desirable here. I've got ARIA pressed equals false. Now, the presence of the ARIA pressed attribute here will tell a screen reader that this is kind of a toggle button. If you can imagine on your perhaps on your iPhone or some other website or whatever, if you've got a setting that you're turning on and off, if you want to do that in a web page, using a button with the ARIA pressed attribute is the appropriate way to do it. But these buttons are not toggling anything here. They are, if I click on any of these buttons, they are doing some kind of function. If here, I'm actually going to find out more about what the cookies are all about, which is kind of more linky, but I'll let it go on the buttons. Here, accept means yes, I'm fine with you setting buttons. So this ARIA pressed here is just not needed at all, and in fact confuses screen reader users. So let's get rid of this now. So we were doing the tabbing around a page. So so far we've got good focus indication going on until we get to here. Okay, and I'm pressing the tab key, and again, so we're actually in this slider here. And one of the things I'll mention, and we're talking about keyboard here, but there's movement on the page here that you can't switch off, and that's a bit of a no-no because some people find that a bit distracting. It's not horrendous, but ideally you need a way to stop for keyboard users to actually stop that happening. If I press the tab key again now, it kind of breaks the slider. I find that quite a lot with sliders and keyboard users. Keyboard users, by the way, you know, are people who can't use a mouse, maybe because they choose not to use a mouse, or maybe because they have an impairment, which means that they can't use a mouse, or can't use a mouse with the accuracy that it requires. Potentially people with multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's or a condition like that. These are going to be the keyboard users, and there might actually be more people using the keyboard than there are who are using a screen reader. So it's quite important. Now you can't see where focus is now. It's on that sell your service, but now if I press the tab key again, it's on these buttons down here, I think, but focus is not at all indicated. Focus is generally pretty good across this site. I will draw your attention now though to the fact that the navigation is in this position fixed element at the top. So I've been using the tab key up to now, but obviously if I want to move, if I'm a keyboard user and I want to move back up the page again, then I will do shift tab. So let's do that. You can see that there's a focus indication on the sell your service, but not on the guy's name, Mike Killen and what have you. And then focus is now has disappeared completely. Okay, and if I do shift tab again, focus is not anywhere visible. Now the reason for that is because it's elements underneath your position fixed navigation area that have focus. It's actually the donate button here. Now that can be a bit of a problem for keyboard users if they're moving up the page, but it's ever so easy to fix. I'm going to show off. I found this out recently. Within your thing here, you've got this link, and actually you can use a CSS control command called the scroll margin top. So let's find, I can set it in here. If I can find the anchor definition, here we go. All right, so if I do scroll, here we go, scroll margin top, and then set it to 3M. Okay, now this doesn't affect the natural margins of these things, but now when I come back into the page, let's got rid of the navigation. Okay, so now if I do shift tab, you'll see that it brings the elements that's got focus, which is this donate button. It actually brings it down 3Ms from the top of the page, which reveals it. Beforehand, it was underneath your position fixed element. If you want to, you can use the one for the corresponding one for the bottom as well, if the scroll margin bottom, if you've got a position fixed along the bottom too. So that's something you can do. So let's keep tabbing down. I think mostly, as I mentioned before, focus indication in Firefox is not too bad. Probably it's better in Chrome. Chrome by default adds a black line around stuff. So yeah, that's generally pretty good, and all these links down the bottom. So not bad. I do want to quickly draw your attention to the at the top of the page. Let's go back up here. So where are we? Control. Right. Okay, so it's getting here. Oh, why won't you behave? Right. Okay. So, okay, I've got focus on that logo. Notice now the screen width is narrower. I'll emulate it effectively being on a mobile phone. I won't have time to actually do this on a mobile phone, but here I've got a button that, not surprisingly, is going to show me like what we consider to be the burger nav, right? Okay, so you can see there's a highlight there, focus highlight, and because as a keyboard user, I'll press the enter key, see what happens. Boof. Here is my burger nav. Okay, fine. So I can see those links. What happens if I press tab to get to them? Basically, I'm actually still on the underlying page. When it opens the burger nav, which is obviously using some kind of JavaScript, what's not happening is that JavaScript is not moving focus into the revealed panel. And once again, I think these are right at the very bottom of the page, so it would be quite a lot of me tabbing around to actually hear. So for keyboard users who are on a narrow screen width, or if I actually, let's get rid of that now, or if I actually zoom in, let's do this. If I use zoom or text resize, then I'm on text resize at the moment. Let's actually do, here we go. So here I've actually made the text bigger because my eyesight is not great. Then I've still got the problem of with the burger nav, right? The other thing to note as well is that this is also this button here is completely meaningless for a screen reader user as well. So if I happened to be to see this, and this is true on a mobile phone, this just does not work at all, because this is actually a link, and it's got an eye in it because presumably the icon is brought in using the before element here. It's in a link which takes me to this in-page link, but there is literally no text in that link at all. So a screen reader coming to that link they'll know there's a link because the screen reader will tell them it's a link, but they'll have no idea what that link is for. So in your mobile phones, the navigation is just really hard to get to. Yes, I know there are links right at the very bottom of the page, so it's not the end of the world, but obviously you don't necessarily know that the link's at the very bottom of the page when you come into it. Let me move this across and I can see what I'm looking at. On the text resizing and zooming, I did have a quick look at this. And this site is pretty good for coping with that. People who have poor vision might want to actually zoom in or make the text bigger, and you can see that I'm up to 200% here, and everything is laid out fine. So well done, whoever put this site together. It actually caters very well with text resizing and zooming, which is good. Okay, what we're going to look at next. Okay, I've done that. Oh yeah, I want to cover the search facility whilst we're still talking keyboards. Okay, so here's the search facility here. If I click on this, I get this window and I can type something in here. There's no button here that I can trigger, but this is exploiting the fact that if I'm in a text box of some sort, if I press the enter key, then it will trigger, whatever, effectively submit the form. So I can do a search on help. Okay, no, that's fine. So a mouse user can get to the search facility fine. What happens, however, if I'm a keyboard user, is I get to here and I'm thinking, oh, I do actually want to do a search. Okay, so if I press the enter key to trigger that button or link, I don't get the search box at all. I actually trigger a search, and it was what the search is. Well, yeah, basically it's blank because I hadn't put anything. It's cleared out the text box. So as a keyboard user, I am completely unable to use the search facility of this website. Yep, okay, that's fine. Let's have a quick look at some other stuff. I've done keyboards, done text resizing, images, alternate text. The issue there, let's go back to the home page. I think mostly we're okay here. I'll quickly show you the Wave tool browser extension here. That is going to find, yeah, there's no, as far as I can tell, there are no images on this page that don't have alternate text, because we've got like alternate text there. Okay, fine. That's good. And so, yeah, that's not bad. So as far as I can tell, there aren't any images without alternate text. Let's get that going as well. And I've got another, yeah, so that we'll assume that the images are okay. Color contrast, I'm going to use the Axe plugin for this. Have a quick look at that. Let's scan the page. It's quite a crowded window. They have redesigned this fairly recently, and so it's not as easy to understand as it used to be. It's basically, it says it's found 60 accessibility issues. These tools like Wave and Axe, they're quite useful for pointing out some accessibility problems in a page, but you can't rely on them to show you all accessibility issues, because, for example, with alternate text for images, it'll say, okay, that image has got alternate text, so that's a pass, but it won't know whether the alternate text is appropriate or not. So sufficient color contrast. Now this is going to show me, it's got 15 elements there, and if I highlight them all, okay, it's showing me this one now. And this is bizarre, because you think, well, that's like a dark gray on a white background, what's the problem with there? So let's have a look. And okay, it says the element's background color cannot be determined because it's overlapped by another element. So this is not helping out very much. So okay, let's see what else we got. So it's the same with a lot of these things. Yeah, I don't know quite why this is doing this, but presumably, I mean, I haven't got time to go into detail, but it's not ideal. So generally, I would say that the color contrast looks to be okay, because the things that it's spotted, basically, you can see that that's got enough color contrast, basically. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I haven't got time to go into a lot of detail on that one. Okay, let's have a look, and then next one about looks. I mean, in terms of like things that are clickable, that is an interactive element, but it hasn't got any obvious, unless I hover over it, I don't know that that's an interactive element. That obviously looks more like a you know, a link or a button. These things down here. So as far as possible, we want things, these are also links as well, but there's nothing to sort of show me that these are links unless I actually hover over it. But if I can't hover over it, then I am reliant on the keyboard perhaps to get around. In terms of link text on the page, I can show you, this is a little plugin called Accessibility Outline. It shows me a list of the links on the page, and this is as much as a screen reader would actually do. This is copying NVDA's way of doing stuff, which screen reader users do. So they get a list of the links on the page that's out of context, basically. So it's important that all your link text makes sense. And if we look down this list, I mean, that's pretty good, really. So from what I've seen so far, you know, the link, you know, the purpose of all of those links is pretty well explained by the link text, having a quick look at it. Now, other things that I can see on this page are headings. Headings are really important for everybody, because if I'm a sighted user coming to this page, very, very few people will actually start at the top and literally read everything on the page. Okay, they're going to rely on things that look like headings like this, and look like, you know, maybe that, and everything like that, and to actually find bits of the page that they might be interested in. Okay, the same is true for screen reader users being predominantly blind people, but also screen readers are also used by people with cognitive impairments, like some dyslexics will rely on screen readers to actually help them understand what's going on. And so it's important that the things are properly marked up as headings. Now there's a useful one bookmark that I can use here. I can click that and it actually shows me on the page the headings. So here's heading level 1 at the top there, which is a good thing. Heading level 2, heading level 3, that's good. So I'm getting, you know, good things. Things that look like headings are all marked up as headings, which is a good thing. Reload the page. This is a new extension that I've started using, skip to landmarks and headings, and this shows you the actual heading hierarchy on the page. And once again, a big tick to this site, because the heading hierarchy looks to be very good. One top level heading, that's quite important. What we offer, and then those are the sections in there, because a screen reader user is going to hear what level the heading is, and so they build up a mental picture of the hierarchy of the sections within the page. So it really helps users if your heading if your hierarchy of headings makes sense, and that's pretty good. Whilst we're in here though, it also shows you the landmarks of the page. Now a lot of WordPress websites seem to have this problem. If you think about it, when someone comes to a web page for the first time, the bit of the page that they're probably most interested in is the main content of the page. And yes, in HTML5 terms, what you put in the main element of the page is the main content. That's what it's for. Okay, this website does not have a main at all. So if I'm a screen reader user who uses landmarks, I will, in my screen reader, I will pick up a tool to show me or to read to me the landmarks that are in the page. And if I can't find the main, then it's all a bit of a guess, really. I've got the search box is labeled there, the navigation, content info. This is like footers basically, and in fact these correspond to the I think these are the widget areas basically down at the bottom there. Okay, but yeah, key problem here is that there is no main, so that's a real problem. Not all screen readers do use landmarks, but a lot of screen reader users do. So what else have we got? Okay, now that's covering landmarks, covered headings. What else have we got here to look at? I've got a little note of things that I'm going to do. Form fields, yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at. Right, I think I've been going for about 20 minutes now, so I won't do a lot more. Okay, let's do donate. I think this area. Okay. So we come to a different page now, and we'll notice it's got a form of sorts on it here. Okay, there's a couple of checkboxes going on over here and something that allows me to make a donation. Let's have a look at keyboard stuff now. Okay, it's focused the full iframe, because this is actually brought in using an iframe, and I'm pressing the tab key. It's on that box. Okay, yes, it's on the currency. That looks like a drop down. So if I'm a keyboard user, what I'd expect to do is to press the space bar to show me the options. And sure enough, that works. Let's choose pound sterling. Okay, then I tab and I press, I can choose the amount. So let's go for 20 quid. Okay, and then I've got some predetermined values down here, and custom amount is the one that's going on at the moment. This effectively are working like a radio button. Let's have a quick look at the markup here though. So radio buttons obviously are, you know, you can only choose one of them. Here I've got, it's a button, These have got tab indexes set. We'd have to make sure that the tab order makes sense. I think it does, but it's not marked up as a radio button. So a screen reader user, although they'll know that there's a button there, they won't necessarily know that this is, which one is this? Okay, this is £7. Okay, so on here, screen reader users are going to find this a problem because it tells them there's a button, but there's nothing to tell me that this is the currently selected button. Okay, because you can see it's got the text there. So in terms of the button text, it says £7. It's also got a value of 7.545, but that won't get read out to a screen reader user. It's a type of button, but there's nothing to tell me that that is the one that's currently selected. So these elements are pretending to be radio buttons, but actually aren't functioning as radio buttons for screen reader users. So let's move forward on this one. Also, I've clicked £7 here. It's actually 7.45 up here. Little bit of a mismatch maybe. So let's move on. Okay, so quite good, quite subtle focus indication, but I suppose that counts. Then these two, the focus order is a bit odd here. The tab order, it goes to the second checkbox first for some reason, and I'm using the space bar to choose the values there. Space bar again, and so that appears to be okay. And I did have a quick run through with a screen reader, and those checkboxes do work quite nicely. And then I'm onto a page where it's asking me for my details. Let's have a quick look at what's going on here. Okay, so I've got a hidden label, but it is marked up, so screen readers will probably read that out. It's also got a placeholder as well. For sighted users, though, using a placeholder without a visible label can be a problem, especially because this is unbelievably faint. That would definitely fail color contrast checks here. But as soon as I start typing, the actual prompt for that field disappears. Okay, so that's a real problem, using a placeholder without a visible label, because if I'm someone who has a cognitive impairment, like maybe a memory problem, then I might forget what some of these fields are for, especially when we get down to the credit card number and what have you down here. If I forget, and I've got to delete all the text out of there to get the prompt back again. Okay, so the tab order is pretty good here. Focus indication is quite subtle in places, but it has got the actual sort of caret, if that what we call it, and everything like that. And I can do that. So it won't let me type letters, it'll only let me type numbers. Okay, and so that's generally not too bad. Now I think I've pretty much run out of time now. Okay, so there we go. So there's a few things to note there. Some aspects of the form are okay. Oh yeah, I know what I was going to do. Let me press the submit button, if there is a submit button is somewhere. Oh yeah, donate now. Let's see what happens. I've certainly left some of these fields blank. And okay, now this is using the HTML5 required attribute here. So you're getting a sort of a browser generated error messages. Okay, there's a slight problem with some of these in that then not all screen readers actually read out the error messages, but there's only the error message for the email addresses shown, not the ones that I haven't, other ones that I haven't filled out. So ideally, I mean, yeah, it's not probably not a fail, but it's just need to be careful that, you know, all the error messages are informative here. Okay, now I look, it's 8 o'clock. I've probably gone on you know, around about my allotted time now, so I'm going to finish now my actual live demo. Let me get my screens back. I've got a couple of useful resources here. I didn't really talk on the color contrast analyzer, but I've got a couple of tools here. If you want to email me afterwards, I can share some of this stuff. If you want to have a look at my previous presentations, though, they're all on SlideShare. Go to slideshare.net, cool fields, And as I mentioned before, this one, how do I know if my WordPress site is accessible, and useful accessibility tools cover a lot of the stuff, the techniques that I've covered today. And so there we go. I think Dan's on mute.
So
Thanks, Graham.
Graham, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that. And
I hope that was useful.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, there's definitely some updates that need to be made on our behalf across the site there. Really appreciate you taking that time
That's
to go
right.
through it.
Let me know if there's anything you need clarification on, mate, you know, because I'm happy to help here.
Brilliant. Thank you. Really appreciate that. We've had a couple of questions come in. Let me just see. I think the first one may have been answered, but I'll just pull it up just so it can be short. Anthony asking, what extension is the Landmark plugin called?
Okay, that's a good one. There's a couple that I use. Wait a minute, I'll show you. Let's get my screen back. Where is it? Okay, so let's do. There's two that I use. This one, which is a newer one, is called Skip to Landmarks and Headings. It's running in Firefox here, but I'm pretty confident that it's available in Chrome as well. I can't speak for Edge. I know some of the extensions are in Edge as well now, the new Edge, that is. The other one I do use is this one here that's just called Landmarks, and it's showing you the landmarks. This one is more of a, both of these browser extensions are also useful for keyboard users because it allows them to jump around a page, which is not something that by default that keyboard users can do quite easily. So those are the two. So this is one just called Landmarks. This one's called Landmarks and Headings, and it's also useful because it will show you the heading structure in the page, and this one doesn't have a top level heading. So there we go.
Excellent, thank you. Let me just take your screen off again for you. We also had a question from Leanne. Is there a way of certifying a website if a client has asked for it to meet WCAG AA minimum?
Okay, that's a good question. I've done, what I did there was a very, very quick accessibility review. It's a sort of like just a quick and dirty, time boxed, half an hour, find what you can. I do when I'm asked to proper audits, and that is what you're asking me there about meeting the WCAG AA 2.1 AA criteria. In order to do that, you'd need to ask me or somebody else who knows about accessibility to actually do a proper audit for you. There are tools that help you test stuff out, but no automated tool can ever find all accessibility problems. So it's something you need to ask someone to do. Doing I mean, the Big Orange Heart website is, it's not a huge website. I'm looking at the links at the bottom of the page down here. I don't know exactly how many pages there are altogether. When I'm doing an audit for people, you'd never ever do all the pages on a website. It would be extremely expensive to do that. And since, especially with WordPress sites, since a lot of this is all set by whatever theme you're using, so it's a templatey type way of doing it. Even, and yeah, if you've got like Gutenberg sort of blocks that you've defined and what have you, there, you know, you're just a sample of pages will give you like all the accessibility problems. So in someone needs to do an audit for you and test against each of the WCAG criteria, and then at the end they'll tell you whether it's passed or not. That's the only certification that I'm aware of. I have done that for people, and you know, I'll produce a report at the end that says yes, you passed, or no, you didn't, and that's usually no, you didn't. Even my own website probably has got problems in it somewhere. There is no website in the world, I don't think, that has no accessibility issues. You know, and the report that I'll create for most people when they ask this, it will actually go through in detail to say this particular WCAG success criteria was a problem because there was an image here with no alternate text, and this particular one, and where necessary I can make suggestions of how you might fix that, where it's easy to fix or something like that, you know.
Excellent, fantastic.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes, I think accessibility, it's not a start and finish thing, is it? It's just a continuous thing. We're continually evolving and adapting. Our websites are continually evolving, and so our needs.
That's right.
Need to
accessibility itself is moving on in the same way as like HTML and CSS and JavaScript never stays still. It's the same with accessibility as well, because there are the Big Orange Heart website does feature some ARIA attributes, some in the wrong place. There are new ones of those coming along all the time, and then it's about choosing whether or not to use them is about thinking about what browsers you'll support. Now, Chrome and Firefox, and to a certain extent Edge now, are pretty good at supporting newer ones that come along. Okay, but I've heard, I haven't got a Mac, but I have used one in the past, and I do work with people who do use them. Safari on Macs, the support for newer ARIA attributes is a little bit slow. Even like HTML5 input types, the Safari doesn't really support all of them very well at all, which is a real shame, because they will give you a lot for free. So yeah, it's moving along all the time. It definitely is, and yeah, I mean, no website in the world, I'm sure, is 100% compliant, but some websites are a lot more accessible than other people. And something I always say in my presentations is that even if you make every single change to accessibility, every single improvement you make will help somebody. So, do it, small and often, rather than trying to, big bang approach and everything like that. Make some small changes and you'll help a lot of people along the way. And keyboard accessibility, which I focused on at the start, is really important, because it also helps screen reader users as well.
Sure. Brilliant. Well, I think that's a fantastic place to wrap up. I think the idea of the small increment changes, they do add up to make a big change.
Absolutely.
So, Graham, unfortunately, there were some other questions which we just simply haven't had the time to get to, but really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you giving your time, obviously, to review the Big Orange Heart site, and obviously to come and share your knowledge and experience with us this evening.
If you want to tweet me a question, I'm quite happy to give you a quick answer at Coolfields. Coolfields is my company, and that's my Twitter ID as well. So by all means, just bang me a question into Twitter, and I'll do what I can to answer it.
Excellent. Well, Graham, thank you so much. Good to see you as always, and we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Graham.
Cheers, Graham.
Take care.
See you soon. Cheers, Graham.
Excellent. Okay, we are going to go straight headlong on into the next session. In this next session, I get to kick Mr. Paul Smart out. He's this side of me. I'm going to be inviting both Anne McCarthy and Paul Lacy to come and join us on stage in just a moment. But before we do that, this session is going to be a roundtable discussion talking about full site editing. This is an opportunity for us to discuss the current status, the future plans of the project, where we're going, etc., experiences with it. We really want to make this as interactive as we can this session. So what we are going to do is open up the opportunity for you to come and join us on stage live. If you so wish to do so, please, in the live chat on live.bigorangeheart.org, put your hand up in some way. Let Mr. Smart, let Paul Smart next to me here know that you would like to come and join us. Paul will then share the link with you as a direct message in the live chat. So in the live chat, you can click on your name and you'll be able to send a direct message. So expect the URL to come and join us via the direct message in the live chat. So we are possibly going to be running short on time. So if you do come and join us, we'd appreciate it if you could join us with one question or one remark and get to the point fairly swiftly. We'll ask you to come on, say who you are, your experience, or your comment, And we'll have a couple of minutes around that discussion. We've done this in the past, and it has been quite quick fire. So we've had quite a lot of people come and join us. So please be prepared. If you are going to come and join us on stage live, be prepared to jump straight in with who you are and what your question or your comment is. Paul, are you all happy with that? Good to go on your end?
You look happy.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to kick off.
Bear in mind, if it all goes wrong, it's Dan's fault.
Yeah. We'll blame Leo because he's not here.
Absolutely. Yes, Leo. Sorry. Yes, you're right. I'll take that back. Leo, it's all your fault.
Right. All smart. See you later. So, I am now going to invite Paul Lacy, replacing one Paul with another. Paul Lacy, welcome. And Anne McCarthy, welcome. Good to see you both. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. Hey.
Hey. Anne,
great to see you all. I've missed
good to
Diane,
see you
nice
both.
to see you. I haven't seen you for ages.
Nice to see you. Yes, I know. It's been, we were away for a couple of months, but I think it's been longer than that. So it's all good. Still in the same room.
Yeah, it looks like you and Graham could form like a band as well with all the instruments that you've got.
That's what we might do next, depending on how this discussion goes.
Yeah.
Well, Anne, thank you. Welcome. Anne, you are a developer relations wrangler at Automatic and here to talk with us about full site editing. Paul, you are a freelance designer, equally here to talk about full site editing. Unfortunately, Nathan Wrigley is unable to be with us this evening. He was due to be part of this conversation. Unfortunately, he won't be joining us. However, I'm really excited to see where this discussion goes. And as I mentioned at the start there, we're also looking to hopefully bring on some of our guests from the evening as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Some of them were very knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than me and Dan. So
absolutely, and I think that's a really where we could possibly kick off this conversation. Let's just dive straight in. Full site editing. I guess, Anne, do you want to give us an overview of what full site editing is?
Yeah, let me give like the quick one-liner. So it's a collection of features. I like to underscore this. I feel bad. Paul has heard me say this probably 1,000 times, but it's a collection of features that allows you to edit the entire site. And that includes everything from things like being able to edit your header and footer to specific templates to things like the query loop block where you can display posts and pages. So there's a whole set of milestones that have been worked through. It also includes some other projects like the navigation editor and the block widgets editor, which was released in 5.8 that you could opt in and out of. So it includes these other pathways alongside just the features. I think sometimes it's really easy to get caught up on what's being done, but a lot of work is also being done for people to opt in and out as they see fit. So that's like the long and short of it, but I could get real detailed real quick if you're not careful.
Well, I think you've really hit, there's a really important element there, isn't it? It's not one big monolithic thing, is it? We're talking about multiple elements here that ultimately come together to create full site editing, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's something that certain folks might play with one piece of it and get really confused. Other times they might play with something else and really enjoy it. And they may not even know that it's related to full site editing. So I think that's one of the things that's kind of cool is different pieces will come out at different times depending upon what people opt into.
Excellent. And we wanted to make sure this conversation is very balanced. There are pros and cons to every single project. And Paul, I know you and I, we've had some conversations recently, and there's been different experiences, hasn't there, in terms of the use of the block editor and from a positive and negative perspective. Paul, maybe you'd just like to touch on your kind of thoughts on the block editor initially.
And don't be shy.
Yeah, well, what people don't know is that I'm always talking to Anne about the whole project anyway. So I'm always in in the direct messages, and we're sort of chatting through things and everything. So I would say that I'm a big Beaver Builder user. I even sort of freelance for Beaver Builder, and I build out sites with Beaver Builder and Beaver Themer, and there is other, which basically is kind of like an iteration of full site editing in that ecosystem as such. And then there's other people that use Elementor, and I'm probably representing one of the people who is struggling to get on board with the project. Like I can, at the same time, I'm slowly understanding different options and different possibilities, and trying to understand different user personas that are not me, because when I kind of think, what's that about, then I'm often sort of thinking quite selfishly about just how I do things and how it's not, that's not for me, so it sucks. And but I can understand, and I'm seeing, especially when Anne was talking about the fact that full site editing isn't necessarily this one package that you have to, you go with full site editing and you've got to go into that ecosystem. I am seeing how you can break it up into the different parts, and different ecosystems will use parts of that and some of them probably won't. So yeah, my main thought at the moment is that I think full site editing is brilliant. I really love what's going on with that. And I'm not going to say I don't think the Gutenberg project, what is happening is good, because it is. I just think that full site editing has got a real challenge to try and work in parallel with the Gutenberg project, which is still got such a long way to go. So I feel kind of that full site editing is something to keep your eye on from my point of view, to see how it develops, but it's not something that I would be jumping out of my ecosystem to get on board with yet. So that's probably the angle I come at. So a lot of people think, that I might be really anti Gutenberg or really, all that, and I'm not. I'm just struggling to see where it fits with me as a site builder who advocates for my clients most of the time. So I'm looking at a client situation and saying, okay, so I need to build a relatively advanced site. It's still a brochure site, but it's got these features, it's got custom fields, it's going to need all these different things. And I keep struggling to see how I will do that with the current tools. That said, last thing I'll say on this is that what I can see, and this is probably another question for later, is that if you do go into the world of Gutenberg, you probably do need third parties anyway. So everyone that I know that goes into this adds a block pack to it, or uses GeneratePress to manage its kind of hooks and stuff like that, or uses Toolset or something like that. So I still think there's going to be ecosystems within the ecosystem. But yeah, that's probably where I stand on things. That I'm kind of watching it and trying to stay balanced if I can. But my instincts drag me down to kind of confusion sometimes.
I think that's you've touched on a multitude of points there, and I think one of the things that I also touched on earlier on is change. Yeah, we're talking about 40% of the web here that are using a tool, and that change management of 40% of the web is not a small undertaking. And of course, we've had what was Gutenberg, the block editor, come in, and there was that whole experience. And I appreciate there's been an enormous amount of learnings going through that process across the teams. How is that looking at the moment? What is that experience from that change management experience around? How do we adjust 40% of the web from what we have known for 18, 19 years? Which I appreciate has obviously evolved over that period of time, but we're going into a really considerable change at this point. And have you got anything to kind of share on that kind of change?
Oh yeah, I have so many thoughts, and honestly, probably more questions than answers, because I can see where we need to define certain things. So for example, like one of the immediate things in a positive way that came to mind hearing you talk, Paul, is, and we've talked about this before, is how, because the site editor reuses the same experience with blocks, any improvement to the site editor, the post editor, cascades everywhere, which is really cool. At the same time, the problems also replicate across. So Helen, who's a core contributor, just did a 4-hour stream yesterday of going through building a site, and I watched almost all of it on 2 times the speed, skipping around, taking notes of all the feedback. And some of the stuff she experiences is related to the site editor, for example, like how do you navigate the different inner blocks when it's more complex content? How do you insert a pattern into a header template, like that kind of stuff, template part. But then other items were like, hey, the plus button is everywhere. This is really annoying. And it's like, yeah, people think that with the post editor too. So I think there's a lot of things with change management, or it's a positive in that we can eventually build for one interface, But there's also the negative in that the same problems exist everywhere, and they're really difficult to solve. So in terms of actually figuring out how to adjust things, one of the things that's on my mind is actually incorporating more locking down of different, maybe you have a block and you can only change the alignment, but you can't actually edit the exact block. So for example, the post title block, you probably don't want to edit your post title when you're editing a template. That would probably be a pretty jarring experience, right? So how do we actually create kind of safeguards built in where people can customize it to their liking if they're a theme author or if they're a site admin? So I think that that's something that really needs to be explored, as does, quite frankly, as more options are being added. This is still the case right now, is that the way things are being added is to keep it very open-ended so extenders can go experiment and kind of figure out what they like and don't like. But then at a certain point, we do need to reimagine the information architecture of a lot of this. So where are the flows for the site editor? So like right now, there's actually an open issue on GitHub talking about, do we even want a site editor tab where people can go into this experience? Or do we want flows where they're able to edit templates using, different pathways than just this one overarching, overwhelming pathway? So, and then you have to think about, you also have to think about block theme authors. So like, how do we make it easy for block theme authors to build a theme in the site editor while also like a site admin building a site? So that was one of the things that was really strange actually to watch Helen, is I could tell she was trying to build a site using tools that are meant to help build a theme. So it was like, I was like, oh, of course she's getting confused here. So yeah, it's a huge transition point. I think right now, I think that's why we're kind of seeing everyone's like, get it in immediately. We're waiting for full sighting. And it's like, no, it needs to be really methodical because anything that gets added has to be maintained. But then there are other things where, I know compared to page builders, like having responsive controls feel long overdue. But then there's an element of how do you do that intelligently in a way that scales for 40% of the internet? So it's tricky. But like I said, more questions than answers.
I was just going to say, talking about change, I remember, that most of the developers were quite fearful when Gutenberg came out. Most of the developers, I knew most of them PHP developers, so it was a lot of JavaScript. But clients really liked it. Overwhelmingly, all of my clients really enjoyed the block editor. So I think there's a tension between those that build, and I think a lot of that, like I said, was everybody having to learn React. But I think that, like I said, the users, clients, overwhelmingly the ones that I have, because I don't use page builders, sorry. They like the block editor. Before that, I would use advanced custom fields to give but then when Gutenberg came out, as everybody in WordPress London knows, I did loads of work early on, and it was, luckily I'm so old that I used JavaScript when it was the only option. So back in the days when there was only JavaScript and HTML. But I'm quite excited about, cautiously excited about full site editing, because there's a lot of features that I'm excited to try, but I'm nervous about the implementation.
I'll quickly note related to that, because I think one of the things I've been hearing a lot about is like, when do we adopt? How do we adopt? Like, you keep saying there's these pathways, but what does this look like? And I hate to plug my own blog, but like, if you go to nomad.blog, my most recent post is about this. Is like, hey, here are some adoption pathways, here are some levels. And it's not meant to be set in stone. It's just my interpretation, having talked to folks. And I'd love to see other people write their own versions, because I think what you're describing is exactly what other folks are kind of reaching, where it's like, okay, I need to pay attention to this, but what does it actually mean? How do I actually do this? And some of the stuff doesn't require diving into JavaScript. I think that's the cool thing, is that there's a lot you can do with the editor that actually is opening up a lot of potentials for folks who are designers to get involved. Or it allows developers, with things like theme JSON, to do less with more. So it's kind of, it's an interesting time though, for sure. And like, I get the fear, and I think that's why there's an entire milestone dedicated to gradual adoption, is because of the lessons learned from 5.0. So.
So I wanted to just make a quick point. I've seen two really interesting looks at whether it's Gutenberg or full site editing. There was a video that Jamie Marshland created, which you can find on YouTube if you just search for Jamie Marshland, who is from Poodle Press, the plugin company. And he created this video to show you how you could create your own theme in full site editing in under 10 minutes. And it did open my eyes to a lot of possibilities, because here's the thing. So if you want to use the tools that I use, or the tools that Mike is talking about, Elementor in the comments, for instance, then you generally do need to invest some money in that, but not everybody wants to do that or is able to do that. You can see that with full site editing, you might want to even, hybrid your tools. You might not really want to use the block editor that much, but the fact is you can have a very simple full site editing theme that somebody created for you in 5 or 10 minutes potentially, and then plug that into a free version of a page builder, or use the Gutenberg block editor if you want to for the content aspects as usual. So it is opening up, the possibility to, whereas before you would go to the theme directory and if you didn't have any cash to spend, and you would have to choose one of the themes and hope that you had as much possibility to customize that as possible. But with full site editing, you right now you can't that much, but clearly in the future you will be able to do a lot for free within WordPress, a lot more than you could before. So I think it's definitely worth checking out Jamie's video on YouTube, and also check out what Brian Gardner is doing with Frost. It's not doing full site editing yet because that system uses Genesis, but I'm pretty sure that the direction Frost will go will embrace everything that the Gutenberg project and the full site editing has to offer. I think that's the point of Frost. It's to embrace that new way and be kind of a leader in that sort of direction. So check out Frost. I think you have to go to frostwp.com or something like that to check it out. But that's very interesting as well. And it helps me as a almost skeptic at times to sort of see, okay, that's put to bed that worry. I can see, I can opt in, I can opt out. It's all fine, and actually I can advocate for it as well. Whereas maybe a few months ago, I was struggling to advocate for anything to do with the project.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I think one of the questions that keeps kind of going around my mind across this, watching from the initial Gutenberg block editor project into this new phase, this new period that we're going into is, and I know this is a really hard question, but who is this for? And I'm sure this has been presented so many times. Who are we building tools for? Non-techies? Are we building tools for developers? Who? And I'm kind of putting that out to anybody here in this discussion, really, because I'm sure we
can speak a little bit to that. Yeah, I mean, I can share my thoughts to it. Like, I think I hate, this is such a cop-out answer. I hate myself for saying this, but I think it's both for empowering end users. Like when I say end users, I mean literally like my dad, who's probably sitting at home messing with his website like right now. So like people from that point of view where they're non-techies, they're just trying to like create a site for their business. I do think a lot of these tools are for developers. Like I think Theme.json in particular is very much for developers. I also think there are tools that are for designers and bringing in design presence, like building patterns. I also think eventually this will be for site administrators. So I recently did a talk with WP Campus, which is for higher education. And one of the big things they have on their mind is a combination of really just being able to lock down the experience. So like, yes, it would be really cool for me to have 4 patterns of a header that every department site could choose from that's, checked off with accessibility, that has like all the branding that we need, but I cannot let them edit this beyond like these things. And right now it would be wide open. It'd be really hard to lock that stuff down. But in time, maybe 6.0, 6.1, the locking down capabilities come into play. So like eventually over time, it's going to hit different target audiences at different points. But right now, so if we're talking about like where we are today, right now it's mainly for extenders. So it's to help them explore, it's for block theme authors, for people to kind of get started there, people who like to tinker, who like to give feedback, who are early adopters. I think looking 5 years out, it's 100% like end users. It's non-technical people who don't want to know what a template part is. They just want to make the top of their site. Like if I pulled up my friend who lives 10 minutes away, she'd be like, I don't know what a header is. She'd just be like, that's the top of my website. It's the first thing people see. So like, I think in time, it'll be for different audiences at different points, which is totally a cop-out answer. And I think that's what WordPress is also. which is something that I love being a part of the community because of that. So.
Sure. I think the thing that I get concerned with that though is you end up in a situation where you're not pleasing either audience.
Totally. And that's where plugins, I think, come into play. Like, to me, that's where it's like, we do have to provide curated experiences and platforms. And I think eventually, like, honestly, I think page builders can build on top of full site editing and create more curated experiences, whether that's like the interface is more locked down or it's more wide open. I do think we're going to, as Paul said earlier, like anyone who's venturing into Gutenberg has to use these third-party things. I think we'll continue to see that. I think it'll actually grow that experience even more.
I think there was certainly some discussion in the community not that long ago around the idea of is this the end of themes? Are themes coming? Should we be shutting up all our theme shops? But actually, I looks like we're moving into a more important period in time for themes. Am I kind of reading that?
I would 100% say so. I run this full siting outreach program, and our most recent exploration that we did was on block theme switching, because I think it's really easy. The WordPress paradigm thus far is very like theme by theme by theme. But in the future with block themes, the way, if we can get standardization and things to work, you could actually pull templates from one theme, global styles from another, and create, and then patterns from a different one, and like create your own experience through these different themes. And like, it really is critical for delivering a good experience. So I think, to me, both block themes are completely almost more important now. And on top of that, we need new people to step in and reimagine what the experiences are like, because it is a kind of a different skill set. It's going to be less focusing on building out like the PHP templates and more on actually creating an intuitive experience for folks to use blocks to build it themselves, or to have drag and drop patterns into things that they want. So I think that that's where it's going to be interesting, is folks will have to adjust. It is an adjustment and a change, but it's definitely not a going away. And those flows are being worked on right now, which is also really exciting. So I can tell you a lot about that.
And it is a really exciting time, isn't there? There's so much going on. I just wanted to quickly mention before we move on, if you are watching on live.bigorangeheart.org and you wanted to come and join us at any point through this discussion, we will open up the ability to come and join us in about 5, maybe 10 minutes time. So if you're on live.bigorangeheart.org, let yourself be known in the live chat. Paul Smart is the person that you need to be contacting. He will be able to share the link with you and invite you in. So if you want to come and join us in this discussion around full site editing, please let yourself be known over in the live chat.
There was some good discussions in the social, so I'm really hoping that some of the people will join us. I won't mention your names, but you know who you are.
I kind of want to lay my cards on the table here. I'm a big fan of the
Dan's our resident expert now after today.
Not at all. I'm a big fan of the block editor, and I really like the direction it's taking. I think as an editing tool, fantastic. I think it's got so much for the future. It's incredible. I like the theory of full site editing. I've used a number of page builders, built plenty of sites with page builders, but equally I've also created PHP templates. I've kind of sat on both sides. And it doesn't necessarily need to be sides. That's probably the wrong way of putting it. But today I jumped in. I've not touched any kind of full site editing at all. So today I think I'm going to jump in and see where I end up. I'm going into this entirely cold. Installed the Gutenberg plugin, installed the block base theme from Automatic, and just see what happens. Start clicking around, and if I'm being honest, I got lost. I didn't really understand where I was. I felt like I was in a very, very, very different place from the WordPress admin that I know. I just wonder what how best can people like me doing what I've just done relay that information and support the evolution of this.
Oh, please. First of all, yes, that's freaking awesome. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking the time to do that, because that's what we need, is people like you who are willing to spend time going through it. Like, I test FSC almost every single day, so that lost feeling, I feel you. I can also tell you, for example, if you stream it or you have a video, if you go look in Make Slack in the FSC outreach experiment, I actually posted a link to Helen's stream. And then I also, with consent, posted all my notes of bugs she found, things I reported, known issues, UX considerations that we need to figure out. So you can see like publicly like the work that I'm doing when people do share things like that. Another great thing to do is blog about it. I mean, that's what WordPress is all about, right? That's how it started. So like write a blog post and send it to me. I'm at Zanzazu on Slack. You can also post issues in the Gutenberg repo. But I know for some people, it's like, well, I don't want to, duplicate effort, or I can't really gather my thoughts. It's all over the place. I don't really know exactly like how to chime in appropriately. Feel free to come to me. I like very much welcome it. You can ask Paul. Like I very much want the feedback. I also don't want to be a blocker.
I think that was me.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's great. And blog about it, hashtag it, whatever. Like I try to keep my eye out on as much things as I can. And there's a whole community of people who are doing the same. Like Carolina is all up in all sorts of conversation about. So I have a bunch of coworkers at Automatic who do the same. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people who want to hear your feedback and want to know what the experience is like. And I'm not surprised you felt lost. Part of what that is about to me is the information architecture of the experiences and the actual flows to when you get to the site editor. I think that's why the site editor tab as a concept is kind of up for discussion right now. I won't go too in depth into that, but there's a lot of stuff on GitHub that you could read if you want to lose 3 hours.
I'm sure and this is such a big thing. There are so many elements to this, and for me, it was things like if I'm in the post editor, if I click the black WordPress icon top left-hand corner, I get back to the dash. I hit back onto the dashboard. If I do that in the full site editor, I ended up seeing
the navigation component.
Yeah, and it was just, what's going on here? I'm not expecting that, but I guess that only comes from feedback loop. You need.
And the outreach program is a great way too. If you're someone who like you jump into it and you're like, this is overwhelming, like that's the whole point of the outreach program, is very curated calls for testing that people can do. And there's on make test, there's actually a tag that's just like FSE testing call. And you can look through all the previous ones and walk through them. Most of them are about the same steps. Maybe the early ones might have changed, but it is overwhelming. And that's the whole point of those calls for testing, is to help people both get educated about what's happening and give feedback. So I encourage you all to join in there.
Excellent. And the Slack make WordPress FSE
outreach experiment. Yeah. Excellent. It's a mouthful.
I guess Diane or Paul, from a kind of client's perspective, I guess Diane, we've had conversations. We build PHP templates, and we might build in the custom fields and hand it off to a client, and we know what they're doing. There's some fixed fields that they can edit content in, and I've got to think about the design and the changes that are going to happen on the front end of the site. This obviously changes our flows in terms of the delivery of products for clients. We've obviously experienced it through the block editor, and we need to lock down various elements of that.
Yes, we do. Yeah, I also always make sure that the theme colors are in the color picker, because I know that they're not likely to go to custom color. But if I leave it as the sort of default colors, terrible things happen. So I want to empower my clients, but I want to save them from themselves to a certain extent. It's like, kind of, that's exactly the wrong kind of yellow that you've chosen there. Like, you've got yellow in your theme, you've chosen a totally different yellow. Things like that. So I'm slightly nervous. I do, because I work with mostly individual clients, and I do a certain amount of training, especially if people are new to WordPress. I guess there's going to be a lot of training around this, but first of all, I've got to know what I'm doing. So I'll have to jump in and get lost as well. But I am a little bit nervous. So I'm going to be looking at, quite early on, at how much can be locked down, not because I want to take power away from users, not at all, but just sometimes, like I said, it's not even necessarily locking down, but I quite like the fact that you can declare what colors are in the color picker, because, like I said, it makes it easy for them to choose the right yellow. But I am a bit nervous.
And there are some big concepts. Like, one of the biggest things we've run into to educate people on in the interface is like multi-entity saving. So saving multiple things at once. Or editing something globally. What does that look like? The closest thing we have is reusable blocks, and people mess that up all the time. So it's like, how do we actually educate folks on, hey, if you edit this, everywhere your site title is, this is going to change. And how do we add the right amount of friction where people are both able to take advantage of the feature, but also not just break their site in a way that they don't want. And that's part of the dance right now that's happening. So
it does feel like we're trying to educate end users about something that they probably never even thought about before. What is a header? What is a footer? What's the body of content? What's there's a lot there that delivering end products to clients can often, there's often a learning curve that we need to go through with them. But I feel like that learning curve is going to get somewhat steeper in this kind of transitional period. I can see the future, and I can see where we're going to be at, as we go forward, in a much better place for clients. But there's that period between then and now that we've got to get through. I don't know, Paul, is that something that you've kind of given any thought to around?
Yeah, lots of
education
thought.
of
Yeah, and but I've been the full circle on it, and I'm not worried for end users at all, quite honestly. And so, even the things that you were talking about, Dan, like, you press that button and, what happened there? Or when you kind of press save and like, oh, it's going to save two things. Do I want it to? I don't know. I didn't know I was editing two things. I'm not worried about those things. Those things will get sorted out. And like, it sort of goes into your question about who's this for. I think like there's a probably a misunderstanding, I think, or even if this misunderstanding might even be within the team itself, that like the third parties will see the opportunities and say, okay, here's a group of end users, we're going to target those, and we're going to make something that sits on top of this, that serves them and understands that they don't know what a header and footer is, and gives them a kind of guided tour. So just because you can edit everything in the header and the footer, it doesn't mean that every end user that gets presented with it, that comes in from a particular entrance point to WordPress via a third-party advert that they saw, comes in and has to know all of that stuff. They, in a lot of cases, they won't. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we see with all the hosting companies acquiring is, or these plugins, is that they're building their own recipe or their own flavor of WordPress that they'll push out. And I think that full site editing in time will give people that. And the thing is, we're all, I don't want to say that we're bleeding edge, but we're nerds basically, and we like to play with the tools as soon as they come out. And so, Diane, when you were saying, you're worried about, and Dan, you were saying about this couple of years where it's going to be very early technology, the people who do end up seeing this header and footer editor, they will either because they chose to, or their kind of web designer decided to give them that, maybe too early for them. But in time, like I say, I think the third parties will step in and find ways to do it. So the Gutenberg editor does need to improve significantly, and it needs to bring things in like custom fields perhaps, or then maybe that's a plugin thing. But at the end of the day, there's tools out there even for page builders. Like there's one called Wallace Inline, and what it does, it works with Beaver Builder and Elementor, and it means that even your end user client doesn't even use Beaver Builder or Elementor. They literally go to the front of the site, they click something, you decide that was editable, they edit it. And the same thing I feel can be done with blocks in time, as long as the web designer in a client situation can make a site with blocks that works and puts all the stuff there. There will be tools that allows that web designer to define how that's edited, and they may never even use the block editor to change many of those things. There will be different ways to do it, but they will use the block editor when they're making blog posts. So they'll be kind of semi-exposed to it, and that's how I see it going. So the more I think about it, the more I'm not worried that all different types of end users will actually have a problem. They will if they try and use it now. They'll run into all sorts of problems. But in time, I think that will get sorted. And it is obviously the full site editing experience on the Gutenberg is way more than what the classic editor was. But the way that open source works with WordPress isn't the same as how Wix builds a product. So it's always going to have all this friction as we kind of go through it, and it is painful at times. And you know, and someone like me can feel even threatened by the project, like, oh, where do I sit within this? But I think it will be okay. We just need to give it a lot of time. And if you think it's not ready for you, then give it a wide berth for now, but just keep your eye on it, because smart people will come in, see the opportunities, and create the tools that add to your tool set to make the sites that you need to. For the time being, I'm sticking with Beaver Builder though. Just that's my cards on the table. But I'm optimistic.
Excellent.
I'm optimistic.
I think another element that I think has been a common thread in discussions has been around the idea of, historically we've had plugins for functionality and we've had themes for the look, the feel of the site, and there's a very much of a blending of the two here, isn't there? If we're talking about, if you're sitting in the editor and you're installing a block and that block is a plugin, and the functionality, it all feels like it's becoming much more blurred, those lines between what's functionality and what is a theme, in terms of the look and feel of the site. Anybody got any thoughts across that, and how do we, again, I guess there's an element of education with clients. For example, if a client has the facility to install a block and they say, oh, it's just a block, it's not, actually that's a plugin. You're adding more potential for vulnerability. You're adding more potential for bloat to your site. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, it is interesting, because the golden rule used to be, and I've actually had impassioned arguments with colleagues about, kind of functionality. Theme is presentational and functionality belongs in a plugin, which also used to be a requirement when you were doing theme review. But I know theme developers, good developers, that have always chucked, if like, obviously not for the WordPress repo, but for custom work, have always chucked a whole load of functionality in the theme. And I was like horrified. I'm like, if somebody switches their theme, they've lost half their functionality. So it feels weird, because I have been feeling a little bit like, is this aesthetics or is this function? And it feels, kind of, it feels like I don't think that we're into the Gutenberg. Well, no, sometimes we are. Most of my blocks I keep in plugins anyway. When I code blocks, I keep them in plugins anyway, because a lot of them are function. I did a load of custom blocks that called an external API. They definitely belong in a plugin. But yeah, for me, see, this is what I'm very excited about block themes, but I'm also kind of like, I'm also a little bit like, kind of how much function does go. That there will be a lot more function in a theme than we're used to. So,
especially with patterns, or being able to add support for like the template editor right now using theme.json, like there are certain curated experiences through themes that like might have been plugins before. But I also think, to me, I don't know how to explain this. A theme is almost, it does veer into plugin territory in terms of having like patterns you can add or unlocking the template editor. What I think of a plugin is almost the experience of creating. Like, I think it'll influence the editor and the experience of editing and creating.
And you were saying that you could take something from like one theme. So, I mean, big problem that we had in the past was that if you switched a theme and it had functions in, you'd lose a lot of your functions.
Much, yeah.
But that wouldn't happen with the
that's
with the block.
That's what's being defined right now. Is like there's some interesting. So there's actually a designer who's going to post a recap on the Make Design blog in a bit that I was working with this week in the project because we did this call for testing around block theme switching. And this is very like blue sky thinking, like very long term. This is not like tomorrow this is going to happen. But it's like, if we could reimagine the experience of switching themes or using different parts of different themes, because that does take advantage of the block theme framework, what would that look like? So like, would it be before you switch, you get this cool like preview where you see like what might change with your styles or what templates you want to keep? Is it some sort of import function? Is it something where, you switch themes and then upon entering whatever the site editing experience looks like, you then have the option to like kind of like an import from backup kind of thing, or restore from backup. You can then pull things from your previous theme. Like it's all like TBD. I'm actually was writing the recap for the expiration today, so I've been thinking a lot about this. But this hasn't been built yet. But in theory, these are the kinds of things that could be possible in the future. There's actually an interesting issue right now around including like a template directory similar to the pattern directory. What would that look like? Is that something that could be explored, and how would that integrate with block theme authors? And what would then distinguish a block theme from everything else, right? Like what would be behind a paywall? Like maybe you have a pattern inserter that is the same for every single block theme, but then with your theme that you pay for, it unlocks all these other patterns that are then visible in that pattern inserter. Like, and what does that look like if you then switch themes? So that's the kind of stuff that needs to be figured out, and that obviously does have a cascading impact on the community. So this is where making your voice heard is really helpful. And
I think that I think what we're saying is there's a lot of opportunity coming forward. There's a lot coming in the future here. But I just wanted to just touch on this quickly. I appreciate we're rapidly running out of time here. In fact, we've actually gone over time. But I just wanted to ask this question around decision making and what that process looks like, and how do we ensure that we have our voice heard in that decision making process. I appreciate we've already kind of touched on some of the elements of that, I guess, but what does that look like? Where do we, and how do we communicate our thoughts and feelings across the project to encourage the development of it?
I'm guessing that question's towards me, right?
Sorry.
I'm just making sure. I was like, I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm normally pretty shy, but yeah, no, I would say the outreach program is a great place to start. GitHub is always welcome. Blogging is always welcome. In terms of who are the decision makers and how things are decided, there is a dance between you want to release something when it's ready, but at the same time, if there's a problem that's impacting everyone that can be solved in this release, even if it's not a perfect solution, like iteration will always come. So there is a dance happening where it's like, how do you actually know what to ship? That's where the go, no go date. So for 5.9, for example, we have these very clear check-ins now with the project where project leadership, so people like Matthias and Josefa and Matt, get together. Helen was in the last one, get together and actually go through and see what's ready. And then at a certain point, decisions are made to, abandon this project and go all in on this one. So for example, right now, I've been paying close attention to, I like to ground things in examples. So I'm paying close attention to the template editing experience. So right now there's a mosaic view that they're exploring to actually make that selection process a lot better. So when you're editing a post or a page, you can actually see the template and it pulls up, you see a preview of the different templates and you can select it. At the same time, there's also this template part focus mode. So if I want to just focus on my header and actually edit just my header, there's an experience for that. What do you focus on first? And right now, what's happening is it's actually the template part focus mode is the greater priority. Why? Because it impacts backwards compatibility. Because eventually, if you're switching from a classic theme to a block theme, that template part mode is actually really important to have in place because you have to make sure sidebars work, footers work. So you have to have that experience because it will actually power that migration pathway. So on the surface, you're like, what? Template part focus mode? That doesn't seem important compared to improving the template editor, which is, opt-in 5.8. But actually it is because it impacts backwards compatibility. So these are where the decisions get it's hard to know the details of, but I like to give an example because they're being made all the time, these trade-offs. I would love to do everything right now if we could, but yeah, it's a lot of dance. And also I will say the demand is huge. Like I think one of the biggest reasons why dimension controls are being worked on and responsiveness is being worked on is because it was upped in priority in terms of what people were saying in the community around, this is what something page builders have. We need this, it's the 21st century for crying out loud. Like I'm always on my phone and this doesn't work. So like your feedback does matter and it does impact project priorities for sure.
Absolutely.
It's quite easy to get involved in the feedback, by the way, because I didn't really understand all of the GitHub, all that kind of stuff. And I joined in the full site editing program, and I can promise that I made some comments, and the comments that I saw from other people in the couple of rounds that I was involved in did get taken into account, and I did see some of that come through. So you and it's quite a small group of people. I don't know how many people there is now, but you can literally be part of making some big impact on this at the moment. Joe Casabona, a podcaster who a bunch of us know, he's really into it and always feeding back and doing live streams. He does this kind of live streams of the full site editing challenges, because Anne puts out these challenges. Can you do this with the full site editing? And then you have to try and do something that is almost designed to expose where you went wrong and where the system doesn't do it. And that works really, really well. And it's quite kind of good fun. Justin Tadlock always gets involved on Dopey Tavern. He's always having a go. And your feedback is totally listened to. It really is. So it's not true that there are, you know, some people say out there that no one's listening. The teams are. They just maybe just can't do everything at once that we all want right now. That's what I've found.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And I appreciate we've got the next Go No Go coming up in about a little over 2 weeks, 16th of October, I believe, is the next Go No Go decision around full site editing for 5.9. So I guess there, if you're interested in getting involved, if you're watching this right now, head over to Slack, head over to GitHub, head over to the various places, and just make yourself known, I guess, is the best way to step forward. We need to wrap up. I just want to very quickly go around. Diane, final thoughts, any couple of words on full site editing?
Oh, cautiously optimistic.
Paul?
Yeah, probably the same. Just stay cool. Stay cool.
And
it's gonna be all right.
Give me your feedback. Let's make sure it's all right. You know, we have to engage.
Fantastic. And I think I am excited. Excited about where this is going. Unfortunately, we simply haven't had time to bring any of the audience to come and join us this evening. I think this is such a big topic. We could probably have done the entire evening covering this, and many, many more conversations going forward.
Happy to come back if it's helpful. So.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. And I just want to say a huge thank you to both yourself, Anne, and to Paul for giving your time today to be with us here and sharing your thoughts and experience across full site editing.
Yeah, thank you both.
Excellent. Okay. I don't like this bit, but we've now got to remove you. Take you off screen. Good to see you both, and we will keep in touch. And obviously, as I said, if you're out there watching this, do please contact, reach out to either Anne or Paul or anybody else across the team that's interested in getting involved in feeding back on full site editing. For now, take care, both.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
If I was hitting the right buttons, there we go.
Hit all the buttons.
That's right. And I'll bring Mr. Paul Smart back. Mr. Paul Smart hasn't had too much to do this evening.
Paul, you were a great gatekeeper. You kept everybody out.
I did. You did say that was the plan, wasn't it? That's what you said, wasn't it? If anyone wants to join, kick them out, you said. You know? They didn't have a ticket, couldn't come in.
No, not down, not going in.
Yeah.
Okay,
that was
I think
excellent. I've got to say,
there is
really good.
There's so much more that we can dive into across this, and it really is. I think cautiously optimistic is a really good way of rounding that off. I think there's a lot there that as a community we have an opportunity to get involved. We have an opportunity to have our voices heard. As we move forward with this, but yeah, we've got to wrap up. We have done our time, so I just want to very quickly bring up some slides and say a big thank you to our sponsors, Automatic, Cloudways, Funnel Packs, Weglot, and Yoast for sponsoring Big Orange Heart, who enable us to be able to deliver WPLDN to you, the community. If you wouldn't mind saying a big thank you to all of them, big.ht/thanks in your browser. We'll put together a nice tweet for you. We are always wanted to hear your feedback, your thoughts across the event, across the format, across the content. If you're on live.bigorangeheart.org/feedback, if you are out on the interwebs elsewhere, big.ht/feedback to get to the same form. Our next event will take place on the 28th of October. We only have 2 more WPLDNs left for 2021. Then we go back to in-person physical events. We are hitting physical events back in January 2022 for WPLDN. So we will be back in London on the last Thursday of January. providing nothing else massive changes in terms of the regulations, the laws, and of course the current the current situation in terms of the pandemic. We will also be launching the mini fest event in January as well. So what you have experienced tonight on live.bigorangeheart.org will continue. We are not simply shutting the doors to the virtual environment. We are maintaining the virtual event on the second Thursday of every month, and we are doing the physical event on the last Thursday of every month. So right now, love to continue the conversations over in the social over on live.bigorangeheart.org. If you have enjoyed anything enjoyed the content this evening, gained anything from it, we would love if you have the ability, please do make a donation into Big Orange Heart, big.ht/give. Every single penny counts and goes towards delivering wellbeing and mental health support within the remote working community. Paul, Diane, big thank you to you both. Really appreciate your time as always. It's always a pleasure to work with you. I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. I think it's the first time you've ever said that to me.
And look at this. I've gotten through the entire evening with not a single comment on the beard.
It was noticed, by the way.
Right. Heading over to the social. Enjoy all.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you are out on live.bigorangeheart, we're heading over to the social and we'll continue some discussion over there. I've got to find a button to click somewhere. Take care, all.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
See you soon.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you.